There comes a moment in every life, a breaking point. A moment when your hands are trembling, your mind is exhausted, and your heart whispers, I can't anymore. My friend, is where the true power of faith begins. Because when you reach the end of yourself, you stand at the beginning of God. There are burdens that your shoulders were never meant to carry. There are storms that your strength cannot silence. And there are doors that will never open with your human effort alone. You were never meant to do everything on your own. That's why God exists in your life. When you have done all you can and nothing moves, that's not the end. That's the moment to step back and say, God, I give it to you now. When you stop wrestling with what you cannot control, you allow God to move in ways you could never imagine. Many people fail not because they lack effort, but because they don't know when to release what's beyond their reach. You pray, you plan, you fight. But when the door still doesn't open, when the answer still doesn't come, it's not a sign of your failure. It's a sign that it now belongs to God. Faith doesn't mean doing nothing. Faith means doing what you can and then resting, knowing that what you cannot do, God will handle in His time, in His way, and for your good. You see, life becomes heavy when you carry what's not yours to carry. You were never designed to hold every fear, every worry, every outcome in your hands. Some things belong only in the hands of the one who created time, shaped the stars, and breathed life into you. When you try to control everything, you end up controlling nothing. But when you surrender everything, you find peace in everything. The moment you say, God, take this, I can't carry it anymore, heaven begins to move. Many of you have prayed and yet still carry the worry. You say you trust God, yet you stay awake at night rehearsing the problem. You claim to believe in divine power, but your heart is still restless. Listen carefully. Faith is not proven by what you say. It's revealed by what you release. When you truly believe that God can handle what you can't, you don't just talk about trust, you live it. You let go of your grip and allow His hand to take over. You stop trying to fix people, to change hearts, to force outcomes. You stop fighting the wind and instead raise your sail to let God's breath carry you forward. The truth is, sometimes God waits until you let go before He steps in. Because as long as you are still trying to be the solution, He will let you. But when you finally say, God, I surrender, the entire atmosphere around you begins to shift. Suddenly, what looked impossible starts aligning. What looked lost starts returning. What looked dead begins to breathe again. When you give what you can't handle to God, you are not losing control. You are placing it into the hands of perfect control. You may be facing things right now that seem impossible. A situation that's beyond reason, a pain that words can't explain, a door that refuses to open, a person who will not change. You've tried everything, you've cried, you've prayed, and still nothing. My friend, that's not because God has forgotten you. It's because He is preparing something deeper than your request. Sometimes God delays to develop you. Sometimes He waits not because He's denying you, but because He's refining you. And if you keep trying to handle what's meant for him, you'll block the miracle that's already on its way. When you release your battles into God's hands, peace enters your soul. The things that once terrified you no longer have power over you, because when God holds the situation, he holds the outcome. Your enemies can't touch what God protects. The storm can't destroy what God sustains. The pain can't last longer than God allows. Everything has a divine boundary when it's in his control. That's why the wisest thing you can ever do is stop fighting battles that belong to God. Stop arguing to prove your worth. Stop running after people who left. Stop worrying about what you can't predict. Lift your eyes and say, God, this is yours. Letting God handle what you can't is not weakness. It's wisdom. It's spiritual maturity. It's understanding that the same God who designed the stars knows how to design your life. You don't have to figure everything out. You just have to keep your faith in the one who already has. When you carry everything in your hands, it breaks you. But when you place everything in God's hands, it builds you. Some of the greatest blessings are not found in fighting harder, but in surrendering sooner. Look around you. So many are anxious, exhausted, broken, because they have made themselves their own gods. They believe everything depends on their effort, their control, their timing. But the more they grasp, the more they lose. Peace never lives in control. It lives in surrender. You can pray all you want, but until you release your fear, you'll never experience peace. God cannot fill hands that are already full of worry. Empty them. Let him take it. Trust that his plan will always be higher, his timing always wiser, and his path always safer than yours. Maybe you've lost something precious, a relationship, an opportunity, a dream. And you wonder why God didn't stop it. Listen carefully. God never removes without a reason. When he takes something from your hand, it's because he's protecting you or preparing you for something greater. You think it's gone, but God is storing something better in a place you cannot see yet. What you can't handle now, he's already handling in the background. While you're worrying, he's working. While you're waiting, he's weaving the details. While you're crying, he's creating a new path for you. When you let God handle what you can't, you learn to breathe again. You stop rushing. You stop comparing. You stop fighting against divine timing. You become still, not because you're passive, but because you know you're protected. You know that what's meant for you cannot be taken from you. You understand that if it's delayed, it's divine. If it's denied, it's direction. God never leaves you with less unless he plans to give you more. There is a peace that enters when you truly say, God, I trust you with what I don't understand. That's the moment anxiety leaves and faith rises. Because faith doesn't mean you understand everything. It means you trust even when you don't. There's a kind of strength that only comes when you've stopped depending on your strength. When you've cried, prayed, and finally said, enough, God, take it. That's when the heavens open. You must learn to recognize when it's time to let go. When you've tried, prayed, and nothing changes, it's not time to push harder. It's time to surrender deeper. There's power in saying, God, I've done my part, now I rest in yours. The greatest miracles come not when we're struggling, but when we're still. Not when we're panicking, but when we're trusting. You may not see the full picture right now, but God does. He sees beyond your confusion, beyond your timeline, beyond your pain. Every unanswered prayer is not rejection, it's redirection. Every delay is not punishment, it's preparation. Every closed door is not abandonment, it's protection. When you believe this, peace becomes your natural state. You stop asking, why me? And start saying, use me. You stop asking, when will it happen? And start saying, whenever you will. That's what happens when you let God handle what you can't. You begin to live free. There are people who are losing their peace because they're trying to control what was never theirs. They're trying to fix hearts only God can heal. They're trying to force opportunities that only divine timing can open. And in the process, they lose their joy. Let go. Let God handle it. You'll be surprised how light life feels when you finally stop trying to carry what doesn't belong to you. There's a quiet strength that appears when you've surrendered everything. You stop running. You stop forcing. You stop worrying. You wake up knowing that the same God who carried you through yesterday will carry you through today. You don't panic at the sight of storms. You rest because you know the one who commands the winds is still in control. Faith means saying, even if I don't understand, I'll trust. It means believing that every loss, every delay, every heartbreak still has purpose. And though your heart may ache, you can still say, God, I know you're handling what I can't. That sentence alone can transform your entire life. Because once you stop controlling, you start growing. Once you stop worrying, you start healing. Once you stop doubting, you start receiving. There is a power that comes only when a soul has reached the end of itself. It is the moment when you've tried everything, said every prayer, fought every battle, and yet nothing moves. That is when your heart whispers, God, I can't do this anymore. And heaven answers, finally, now I can. The divine cannot intervene in a life that refuses to surrender. As long as your hands are gripping the steering wheel, you will keep driving in circles. But the moment you release it to God, the same road that once felt endless suddenly reveals a destination. You see, surrender is not the language of defeat. It is the doorway to divine victory. When you let God handle what you can't, you are not stepping back in fear. You are stepping aside in faith, allowing His perfect plan to unfold without your interference. You must understand that control is an illusion. The more you try to manage everything, the more anxious you become. Because life was never designed to obey your command. Only God governs time. Only God controls outcomes. And only God determines the right season for your blessing. When you insist on doing what only He can do, you carry a weight too heavy for human shoulders. You were not created to bear that load. You were created to trust. The hands that shape the universe are strong enough to hold your future. The one who made the oceans knows how to calm your storm. The same power that keeps the stars in their place knows exactly where to place you. So stop trying to fix everything in your limited understanding. Instead, kneel in quiet faith and whisper, God, I trust you with what I can't handle. There is a sacred silence in surrender. It is not the silence of despair, but the silence of peace. It is the stillness that comes when you stop wrestling with outcomes and start resting in God's authority. Many people confuse movement with progress. They think that by constantly worrying, constantly talking, constantly planning, they are showing faith. But true faith often looks like quiet confidence. It looks like sitting in the middle of uncertainty and saying, even if I don't see it, I know God is working. The calmest person in the storm is the one who knows who controls the wind. When you let God handle what you can't, you stop living as a victim of circumstance and start living as a vessel of purpose. You begin to see that not everything that hurts you is meant to harm you. Some pain is preparation. Some loss is direction. Some delays are divine. You may not see the full picture yet, but God does. Every tear you've cried has been counted. Every prayer you've whispered has been heard. Every struggle you've faced has been seen. You are not invisible to the one who designed your destiny. And though you may not understand the why, one day you will thank Him for not giving you what you thought you needed, because He was protecting you from what you couldn't handle. There are people who keep asking, why does God allow me to go through this? And the answer is simple. Because He is strengthening what He plans to use. Diamonds are not made in comfort, they are made under pressure. Gold is not refined by ease, it is refined by fire. And faith is not built when everything makes sense, it is built when nothing does. God allows pressure not to destroy you, but to prove that you are built for greater things. You think the delay means He has forgotten, but it actually means He's preparing you for something too powerful to handle in your current form. So when life feels like it's falling apart, maybe it's actually falling into place, God's place. When you let God handle what you can't, you also learn the beauty of patience. The waiting room of life is never empty. It is full of souls being tested in trust. Waiting is not punishment, it's part of the process. God is not just preparing the blessing, He's preparing you to receive it. If He gave you what you asked for too soon, it would crush you, not bless you. But when you wait, when you trust, when you rest, you grow strong enough to carry what's coming. Faith means believing that even in silence, God is speaking. Even in the delay, God is directing. Even in the dark, God is designing. Letting God handle what you can't is also about forgiveness. There are wounds that you cannot heal by holding on. There are people who have wronged you so deeply that no words can undo it. You replay the pain, hoping it will somehow make sense. But it never does. Because forgiveness is not about them. It's about freeing yourself from the chain that ties you to that pain. When you release them to God, you're not saying they were right. You're saying, I trust that God will deal with what I can't. Vengeance belongs to God. Justice belongs to God. Peace belongs to those who leave it in His hands. Letting go of bitterness is one of the most powerful ways of saying, God, you are my defender, not my anger. When you let God handle what you can't, you stop chasing people who are not meant for you. You stop begging for attention, validation, and acceptance from those who were never assigned to understand you. You stop explaining yourself to minds that cannot comprehend your calling. Because when God is guiding you, He will send the right people at the right time. You don't have to chase what's divine, you only have to stay aligned. The moment release who and what was never meant for you, the space they occupied becomes available for God's real blessing. There are times when you feel like you've lost everything.